Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Leinster Rugby Roundup show, the Leinster Laighin, part of the ThreeBOD Rugby Group. Tonight's show is brought to you in conjunction with Rugby Academy Ireland, a pioneering international rugby academy helping aspiring players enhance their rugby and lifestyle skills through practical training and a bespoke curriculum, equipping students with an excellent education and the qualifications needed to begin a career in professional rugby, be that as a player, coach, referee, video analyst, performance analyst, and so much more. Also tonight, we are supporting Shep's Blend from coffeedog.ie, a premium range of coffee beans and ground specifically made in the image and style of our own chief bloke and tonight's producer in the TMO truck, Big Joe Shep. Finally, we are supporting PGM Financial Services, who provide financial planning advice relating to retirement planning, life assurance, and health insurance, and we wish friend of the show, Patrick McEntee, all the very best on his recovery from his recent heart op.
It's been a while, but I'm coming out of my shell. And I never thought I would fall in love with someone just like you. And nobody here now, I hear you calling out, I hear you calling out for love. And nobody here now, but I hear you calling out, I hear you calling out for love. I hear you calling.
Well, so welcome back, everyone. Nathan, great to be back in your company again tonight. It's been a while, me old mucker.
It has been a while. Should we quickly run through what we're going through tonight? I mean, each month, obviously, as everyone knows, we look at all the aspects of rugby in Leinster, grassroots, provincial, European, mixed ability, visually impaired, wheelchair women's schools, and a lot more. So what we're talking about tonight then, where we're going to look at Leinster's mini tour to South Africa, especially Alex Soroka's performance there. We're going to look at the AIL Div 1 final that was in the Aviva last weekend, the end of the Six Nations when Ireland defeated Scotland in those dramatic circumstances. Of course, we've got a preview of the Leicester game coming up, and we're joined by our regular guests and of course a special guest as well. So, Conor, how have you been getting on? Like you said, it's been a while since the pair of us have been.
Yeah, we're going old school, back to where it all started on the Leinster line. I've been good. Enjoying the rugby when I can. It's been an interesting couple of weeks as a Leinster supporter, seeing the kids go down to South Africa, and come back with no wins, but a huge amount of credit built up and a huge amount of respect these kids, I think, have got in after their performances in South Africa, despite not from two after the mini tour. There's like I think in summary, like it's been a positive tour despite no wins. There's been a number of players either introduced themselves, like or really be known they can deliver against a top level opposition. The likes of Tom Clarkson there, he was up against one of the best loose heads in the world, in Stephen Kitchoff the other day. And he acquitted himself well despite a few penalties. We'd other guys like Cormac Foley and Rob Russell also did well. But of course, the one we're going to talk about is Alex Soroka. Like, he was just absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, that photo, I shared it to four provinces the other day. I think it must be one of my favorite ever photographs. Just what's going through his head there, Nathan. It must be,
Well,
I know he was really disappointed, like at the final whistle, like, and
he had to be calmed down a bit, didn't he? The lad, he was annoyed that they kicked it out for the losing bonus point, and I think someone, it was Harry Byrne or something, had to go up to him and be like, "Listen, lad, we're top of the league. We've got the losing bonus with the kids. This is really good." What's going through his head? God knows. The poor lad has been through hell and back, and had to play some rugby in between. I mean, he's got a really interesting family dynamic. He was born here, but his brother and his parents were obviously Ukrainian. His brother Ivan, who we'll be chatting about a bit later, because he was playing in that AIL final for Tarf. It's a lot going through his head. On one hand, rugby's just a game when you consider what's going on in the country of his family, and equally, it's much more than a game, because it shows what you should be able to do in a normal life that's not in a war-torn country. So yeah, I mean, in terms of his performance, though, he was brilliant. I mean, I've heard people I heard one comment actually that he plays a lot like Prendergast out in Connacht, and it's not just because the two of them have long hair. Brilliant line-out athlete. Not the biggest lad in the world, but his contact skills and collision skills are still pretty good for someone who's not a massive number 6. Good defensive work rate, all those types of things you want from your blindside flanker. So look, I think he had a lot of credit in the bank from his under-20s days, but the few caps he has gotten, but he's come back with a lot more credit. And Joe's asking us there, what do we think about the squad? Was Leo proven right? I'm going to throw out a conspiracy and say Leo Cullen knew all the teams below them would lose, so they'd only need 2 points to become top of the league. So he was proven right. No, I'm only joking. But I think he took a gamble, and he knew what the potential opportunities were. And I'm sure that possibility that they would only need 2 losing bonus points was discussed. And even if it wasn't, I reckon if they needed to, they would have backed themselves to beat Munster in the Aviva in the final round.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was so much. Was Leo Cullen proven right? Absolutely, he was. If it's a results orientated business we're in, first of all, then we've come back with top spot locked up. If you're looking at the bigger picture, then the development and the experience these guys got, and remember, and I think it's a big thing here. The fact we're playing so there's not as many games on the schedule this season. There's fewer opportunities to blood these young players, or to give them experiences in big matches, and to send the pack of young and inexperienced players down there, and to have them go toe to toe with 2 South African teams in their own backyard. Would be the makings of a lot of them. Jamie Osborne's another one. Even though I think he had a mixed performance at the weekend against the Stormers, he just looks. He's the type of guy, he makes a mistake, he just bounced back. He kicked the ball out on the full. He wins the turnover a couple of minutes later. He misses a tackle. The next one, you can be sure he hits him like a ton of bricks. I think this guy has a big future, and he's been one of the players of the season, I think, or the young players of the season for me, for Leinster. And ultimately, the other important point here is that you can't flog or frontline players every week. You can't send them to South Africa, expect them to come back and win. So yes, it was a gamble, Nathan. I'd agree with you on that, but it was a calculated gamble, and I think it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things there. I mean, it's coming up in the comment section here. The fact there's no British and Irish Cup, the Academy into Pros from years ago aren't there anymore. where is he going to get all these guys games? They weren't supposed to play as much as they were, but COVID meant that they had a whole load of rescheduled games during the Six Nations windows, which was obviously supposed to be completely free. I mean, on one hand, this just kicks Leinster's problem further down the road. They've just kicked the can down the road in terms of those mid-tier players between the young hotshots and the Irish internationals are probably all going to leave in their droves when there's no game time for them anymore. We kind of spoke about that before with the amount of lads whose contracts are up.
So you're talking about the Rory O'Loughlin's, the Jack Dunns,
I think
guys
Jack
in their
Dunn,
mid-20s.
I think Jack Dunn is one of the younger lads we should have kept, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're the O'Loughlin's, Adam Burns, Peter Duty's, but we've kind of talked about, we did a show about lads whose contracts are winding down, so I don't necessarily want to go into that again. But it showed that those lads who are behind them, the younger lads, can still compete in this league when the Irish internationals are away, because they went to the hardest games they'll get, South Africa away, and competed. And I think that's all we can ask for, because I think if you look at a few years ago, those types of players who were not in the Ireland squad were they were the Gary Ringroses, those types of players. They felt like there was a bit more hype around them and people thought they were better. Whereas, we don't get that one generational talent every season that maybe we did in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think it's good that those lads competed. I mean, maybe there's a reason for that. It's because we keep sending loads of young lads to the sevens because we want everyone to turn into the next Hugh Keenan, because that's what we did with him. But that's a sevens conversation for a different day. But one major takeaway from the South Africa tour was Kieran Frawley I think he's probably the third best. I know he doesn't play there half the time, but I think he could easily be the third best out half in the country at the minute. He slotted in there a little bit. That kick for the Tommy O'Brien try against the Sharks.
Oh, what a beauty.
Oh, and the man, there's no question. I know he plays 12 a lot of the time. There's no question he can play 10 as well. I think there's a serious
he just looks so assured there. And I'm not convinced he'll ever fit in Andy Farrell's plans as a 12. I just don't see it. Like we're so built around that physicality in the center to get us over the game line. I know tactics have changed and we're switching to point of attack, but we still rely very, very heavily on a defensive leader at 12. And I don't see Farrell playing him, but 10, it's up for grabs. Post Johnny Sexton, the 10 jersey is up for grabs, and there's a strong argument that Frawley is the leading contender. Or not the leading contender, but should be. So I don't know. I don't know. Like how's that going to play out? Have they invested too heavily on him as a 12 at this stage, or can he still go back as a full-time 10?
No, I think he can go back. I think he can go back. I don't think there's any question. What I would say is that we probably just opened up a massive can of worms because we've accidentally gone into the 10 conversation again. So should we, I don't know, is there anything else you want to bring up from that tour, or should we get Gerald in to talk about
Yes,
South
African TMOs. No, I'm only messing.
Oh.
That'll take another 20 minutes. That foot and touch, for some reason he didn't.
That's best left for another day.
Okay, Doug.
The fact that, anyway.
Hi, gentlemen. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Nathan, Conor. Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Right.
So, how have you been, Gerald? Enjoyed the game over the best.
I was following that match on Sunday, the Clontarf Terenure game, and actually, I found it a very cracking game of rugby. The standard for AIL, top division now, I thought was exceptionally good, and it was played at a fairly fast pace right through the whole match. And the attendance actually was something like 5,700 or 800 or something like that, which was very good considering we've had 2 years of COVID and we're only just getting back, and this is the first full season of AIL rugby in 2 years. And actually the atmosphere was great, because if you could hear the crowd, it's even better, I thought, than even some of the Six Nations games that were played at the Viva earlier on this year. And Terenure actually they got a lot of support with the community, and the schools got behind them. And actually, it's Terenure's first AIL final, if I understand, in the AIL. Watching the match, I found it to be very entertaining and a great advert for rugby. The first half was good. Penalties, and it was really penalties and tries were dominant in the match. In the first half, I saw there was actually every 4 or 5 minutes of the game, there was at least either a penalty or a try. It started off with Conor Kelly getting a penalty for Clontarf, would put them in the lead. And then Carl and Dooley from Terenure got a penalty a couple of minutes later. And then on about 10 minutes, Clontarf actually, Conor Kelly missed the only penalty kick after 10 minutes of play. And then he got a penalty then on the 13th minute, put them ahead by 6-3. And then Terenure scored a try, Peter Sylvester, played in the centre. He got a try for Terenure, and it was converted by Carol and Dooley. And that left the score then, Terenure leading by 10-6. And then they actually went further ahead with another penalty from Carol and Dooley. And then after 21 minutes, and a minute later, Clontarf got 2 penalties. And they brought the score back then to 12, Clontarf 12, 13 to Terenure. Then Clontarf then got another penalty on the 38th minute or 35th minute, with Conor Kelly getting a penalty. And then Terenure struck back with another penalty, and then they came back and they led 16-15. And then just about 2 minutes before half-time, Ben Griffin from Clontarf got a good try, which was converted, and leaving Clontarf leading by 22-16 at half-time. And then it wasn't until about 10 minutes later in the second half that Clontarf went further ahead to Dylan Donnellan. He got a try, which was converted to lead the score then at 29-16. And people thought that might have been the end of Terenure, but no, they actually came back on the 60th minute, and Alan Benny, who was playing a scrum half, he went over for a try for Terenure, and it was converted by Carolyn Dooley, and leaving the score then at 29-3. That meant that for the next 20 minutes of the remaining 20 minutes of the match, Terenure kept slogging away at Clontarf, and the Clontarf defence now was holding out pretty well. And there was a few substitutions were made, but on both sides. But in the end, I suppose Clontarf deserved it. In the end, because of maybe from the experience. But by golly, it was one hell of a good match for an AIL match, and I was really impressed by the whole tenure of it and the atmosphere that was created. The lead actually did change hands, actually, something like, I think it was 3 or 4 times anyhow. And it was a really good match, and I think it was a good advertisement for AIL Rugby, as we see it. And I think it was well deserved. That was my take on the match anyhow.
Yeah, I thought the standard was very high, and the atmosphere, by all accounts, was at the game was fantastic. Tell us a bit about Ivan Soroka, who is it
Ivan or Alex? Which of them? Ivan's that's Alex's brother.
Yeah, he's Alex's brother. The feature.
Yeah, Ivan. He was now. Alex, as you probably know, was born in Cork along with his sister. But Ivan I think Ivan is about 6 years older than Alex, and he was born out in the Ukraine. and they came over with his parents, and they settled in Cork first, and then they came to Dublin. And then they started up this GoFundMe. The two brothers started up this GoFundMe for Ukraine. They started, actually, funny enough, the two boys, Ivan and Alex, actually started their rugby at Bective Rangers, play at minis rugby. And then they went to Blackrock College. And then they
College.
Was it not Blackrock, I thought? Or was it Belvedere? I thought it was Blackrock. But then they went, my fault. They went, then they started up with Clontarf. Now, I had done a bit of research on Alex. Didn't Alex play with the Irish under-20s in 2018? He's got 2
years.
We were saying earlier.
2 years, that's right.
Yeah, we were saying that earlier. He very impressive. So, the fact he's come through now.
You know that he actually he auctioned his jersey. 2018 he auctioned the jersey, and he got 38,000 by auction in the fundraising. So he did. But there they had started this fundraising for the hospital out in the Ukraine, and so far they have raised over 55,000 euro. And I have got great support, not only from the club, but also got support from a lot of the other clubs around the country that have given donations in the fundraising efforts. They're trying to get supplies, medical supplies and equipment for Children's Hospital out in the Ukraine. And I think it's really wonderful what they're doing, and a great inspiration. And it actually has inspired another young lad, Blav. He plays for Buccaneers. He's a Ukrainian who has come to Ireland with his mother, and they've been put up in a family in Athlone, and he just started playing rugby in Athlone, and he got on the Buccaneers under-15, and they just recently won the Connacht under-15s Cup, and another Ukrainian.
The story of lad was doing the rounds on social media. I actually have a friend involved in the coaching down there in that team, and he's a top man, Vlad. So well done to him and everyone involved there.
But it's wonderful actually what the boys have been doing in Ivan and Alex have been doing in Clontarf and with Leinster, and actually
absolutely, and using their using their profile in such a
profile for good use. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alex actually has only had is played for Leinster now 4 times now for Leinster. I think it's four times.
Started 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
we're going to look at the other AIL tables there briefly. I think Joe's going to throw them up.
It was a bumper. Yeah, it was a bumper AIL day, wasn't it? I mean, the other big news was that Shannon got promoted back to the top.
Yeah.
That was some rendition of "There Is an Isle."
That was what I was going to say.
That's right.
If you haven't looked at it on Twitter, Jerry Flannery shared it on Twitter. The entire club singing. It's something.
Shannon, they overcame Nace, and funny enough, Shannon actually at the end of the normal league season, Shannon actually were in second place, whereas Old Wesley were in first place. And quite rightly, Clontarf were in they're at the very top, and they won the league. And unfortunately, my club actually had to drop out after we were beaten in the round robin, or at least in the relegation zone. So we're going back down to Division 2A. Then in the Division 2A, Queens actually won the league, but actually Buccaneers actually won. They beat Queens in the playoffs, and they got promotion. But again, Buccaneers have come from behind in third place, whereas Queens, I know, were at the top. Rainy Old Boys actually dropped down into 2B. On Division 2B, now Greystones actually were at the top. They won the league, but they had to play Blackrock again in the playoff for promotion, and Blackrock actually beat Greystones, and so Blackrock went up, and Greystones stay where they are in 2B, and Ballina dropped down to Division 2C. And then in Division 2C, Enniscorthy, they won the league, and they also won the playoff when they beat
quite a distance.
Yeah, so they won the league by clear distance. They actually were probably the highest winning team in any of the leagues. They had a fantastic season. And remember, this is actually Enniscorthy's first really full season in the AIL, because last year, as the league wasn't fully played out at all. So this has been the first full season in the AIL for Enniscorthy, and so they have gone up anyhow, and they're into 2B. And City of Derry have dropped down into the Ulster League, and Estonians go up from the round robin,
from the junior ranks, back to AIL where they were, of course. Not back in the day. We still have a lot to talk to you about, Gerald. We're going to talk about women's rugby in a minute. Before we do that, we'd just like to remind our viewers, this is the Leinster Laighin, a monthly Leinster Rugby Roundup show brought to you in conjunction with Rugby Academy Ireland, Cheps Blend Coffee Dog from coffeedog.ie, and PGM Financial Services. I'm Conor BROOMFIELD, and I'm joined tonight by Nathan JOHNS and Gerald Willamson. So, guys, women's rugby. We had a great win over Scotland on the weekend. Nathan, were you watching that match? What were your takings from it?
Dramatic finish, wasn't it? I mean, look, they needed a win, didn't they?
Sure.
With everything that's going on and all the comments about off-pitch matters and players going to sevens and stuff like that, they needed a win. They got it. They pulled it out. My personal highlight was seeing a back row slot 40-meter kick earlier in the game. I think that was one of the most insane things I've ever seen. With the penalty, the long range penalty, and obviously a conversion at trying to conversion at the end. Enya Breen, just class act. I mean, anytime there's a match winning moment like that, it's impossible not to focus on that. So yeah, they needed a good news story. They got one. The conversation now goes back to contracts, sevens, the structures, AIL versus province, and we're only teasing that because we will be doing a full show on that at some point, because that's worth an hour in and of itself, if not more. But I mean, Enya Breen was top class, I thought. And also, I mean, it's worth mentioning Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe in the sevens getting a bronze medal last weekend as well. I mean, it's a shame she wasn't playing for the 15s, but she was quality.
No, it's complicated. It's complicated, as they say.
The one thing I would say is Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe scored 4 tries in the sevens, and my favourite take on it on Twitter was Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, 1 try for each name.
That's brilliant, and I know you've strong feelings, Gerald, on the women's game and AIL clubs, poaching from the AIL clubs poaching from junior teams who have nurtured players and brought them up to that level, and that's something we would like to talk about on next month's show in more detail. I know you feel what's going on isn't right, and it's very hard for the junior clubs to continue their development when they're losing all their players. I think there's 2 sides. There's 2 schools of thought on this. One is shares your view, absolutely, Gerald, and I see where you're coming from. I think the other argument is that it's a natural progression, and we possibly aren't equipped right now to have an expanded women's AIL but at the same time, we need our top players playing against each other to prepare properly for test level rugby. So it's a big one, and we do need to talk about it in more detail.
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Actually, I think the new management in the women's the national team is a breath of fresh air. Craig Williams, I think he is really, he's actually very down to earth, and he's talking to the women, he's talking to the media, etc. And I think he's actually a breath of fresh air in regards to at the top end of women's rugby. And it's great to see actually some new faces actually on the Irish team who have come through. And again, okay, 15s as against 7s is another matter where we are. The numbers, you see, you must remember the numbers. We don't have the same numbers in women's rugby in general as in men's rugby. And women's rugby is still growing. And the only way it's growing actually is growing up from the grassroots. I mean, there's another day's talk, I suppose, wherever you want, if you want to put it that way. But I think the first thing you're going to see is the growth of girls rugby in this country is going to be going through the roof, because this at the moment, give it a try at under 8s to under 12s, etc., 14s. That's going to be the first step, and that has taken off now. And then you're going to have this tag rugby in the summertime, during the summertime, and you're going to see more numbers girls taking up rugby. But it's the level between 17, 18 and adult women rugby is where we have to.
That's tricky. I think it'll all sort itself out in due course. We're just at a stage now where probably the number of women playing is disproportionately larger at underage level, whereas there's been a huge influx of women, and the structures probably aren't quite there at adult level, to continue that development further. And there's also I think there's we're not quite at the level yet where we have the players coming on board to be successful at test level rugby. You know, you look at the number of women playing underage, and people often question why then isn't it translating. And I think we'll get there, to be honest. And I think the funding will come when there's so many women and talented women, and the sponsors will come on board, and it'll all be okay. I think.
Just want to bring this up because I thought it was an interesting comment about the sevens program being the scapegoat. I think
absolutely, yeah.
I think it's undoubted that some people do look at sevens and just blame it for everything. I think you can blame it for robbing Ireland's back five for the last couple of games, but I think what's happening is that the rugby public that watches these games is saying we want to watch the 15s. We don't want to watch the sevens. It's not the sevens' fault that they've got contracted players. It's not the players who play sevens' fault that their contracts
and the fact
they're pro sevens. I don't think it's sevens' fault in and of itself, but I think there is a mood that people want to prioritize the 15s, the rugby playing public, and I think that's important.
The fact is that sevens rugby is actually an Olympic sport as well. You must remember.
That's what Craig Williamson said.
Very good.
And a lot of funding for that actually comes from the state.
And let's remember the goodwill there was for the men's team when they qualified for Tokyo, and how nuts everybody went over that. So it certainly has a place.
But taking that aside, in the women's level, at AIL level women's rugby, this past season were two additional teams are added to it, and I think actually there should be a second level of AIL, a Division 2, and that might help to bring more. I probably have said this before. I don't know about your Nathan. You might have a second thoughts about that.
As Big Joe Chef says, it's all about structures. And that's what you're getting into there. Yeah.
But I think that the more exposure that girls 18, I know there's a thing going on in Leinster at under 20s, which is great to see. Regional areas, Northeast, Midlands, Southeast, some of the clubs have got together at under 20s level to make that fill that gap between under 18s and women's senior level.
So that was a very long taster. That was a very long taster. As you can see, we all have very strong views. I think we're all on the same page on this, to be honest. We're all on the same page. It's just everyone gets quite opinionated about it because everybody wants the right thing and they want it yesterday.
Yeah, I think actually a very good example of a club that really has progressed at that level, right up to AIL level, is actually Wicklow. Wicklow they're doing fantastic work.
When they started,
because they have brought a lot of their own players right up into the level where they are today. Some other clubs, I don't know whether I should use the word poaching, but it has been known to happen in other clubs.
I think that's a topic we'll get into.
Yeah, that's what we were going to talk about next month, isn't
it?
That's another story.
Exactly. I think we need to get one of the head coaches from the AIL teams to counter your arguments, Gerald. The two of you can go.
You say they counter his arguments. What I would say is I've chatted to a few of them, and they completely agree with and that I've actually had that line, "a breath of fresh air," used to me on the phone about Greg McWilliams from AIL coaches. He's engaging in the right way. We just need to make sure we need to empower him to do the best job he can, and I don't think we're doing that at the minute. Anyway, should we talk about Leicester?
Yeah,
Gerald, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Gerald. Cheers.
Always to have you on.
Thank you.
Chat soon. Thanks, mate.
So yes, we are going to see him. He's waiting patiently. Thank you very much for waiting. Elliot Butlin is our resident Leicester expert today. Elliot, how you doing?
Evening. How's it going, gents?
How are you doing, Elliot?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thanks for joining us. Our pleasure.
I think Conor's quite nervous about Saturday. What are you feeling, Elliot?
I think from my side and quite a lot of the Leicester public, it's just pure excitement. It's, after so long being away and having a few years in the doldrums, and for a couple of years it was just really, really bad. To be back in the sort of big time and back involved in these type of games against opposition like Leinster, it's everything you want as a club rugby fan, and it's an opportunity for this group of players to really test themselves against a real European powerhouse, and to have you guys all come into Leicester for the game. There's a huge buzz and excitement around Leicester with the ahead of the game. So I think all of us are excited for it, and we're all looking forward to just giving it a crack. It doesn't matter if we lose or not. The pressure almost seems to be off us in a way. So it's an opportunity for us just to test ourselves, see where this group is at against a team like Leinster, and see how we get on.
Yeah, this is where every supporter wants to be, isn't it? Following your team, you're top of the league. You've a massive European match at home, and it's been a tough few years out of it, hasn't it? So has been the key ingredients behind the revolution at Leicester this season?
To be honest, it's a process that goes back 2 or 3 years. I mean, it started with Geordie Murphy. I know as a head coach, the results on the pitch didn't go his way, but in terms of Geordie's legacy, really is turning and transitioning a squad that was badly unbalanced and just not in a good place at all, and really was not a good squad. And he begun that transition of a group of players to something that actually gave Steve something to work with. And so when he handed over the baton to Steve, there was a group there that Steve could run with and to take it on. And the work that Steve has done with the rest of the coaching side is just incredible, because you look at the playing group and the improvement that they've done, not just on an individual level, but as a collective basis. Across those two metrics, they are far and away much, much better than where they were 2 years ago when Steve walked through the door. And a lot of it comes from pure hard work. You know, it's nothing too fancy a thing other than actually getting down onto the training ground and grafting and grafting and grafting and spending every day trying to get better at what they do. And, you know, as we've seen this season with the results and the performances that they're getting, it's staggering the success they're having this year so far. And the season is far and away exceeding all expectations of where the fan base were expecting for this season.
Yeah, it's I don't think there was too many people, if we're being totally honest, tipping Leicester to be top of the league at the start of the season. And as you say, both individually and collectively, they've been your guys have been really impressive. Like Sir George Ford, I think has been a standout for this season. Like, you know, I know he's an experienced England international, but I think he's been really impressive this season. Like Elliot, I was brought up watching Leicester. You know, the hard men of the 80s and early 90s. You know, with the pre-professionalism path, and Leicester going head to head every season, watching them on Rugby Special on the weekends. And then of course you had the all-conquering team of the early 2000s, winning back-to-back Heineken Cups. There we go now. What a team of legends, you know, Neil Back, Martin Johnson. But it's that sort of resilience, and I think it's that sort of earn will, like, and I don't know, never say die. It's just the characteristics you associate on Leicester teams. Are we seeing that again this season?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because Steve obviously plays all of his playing career against Leicester when he played for Bath, he played for Sarries. And he made quite a thing when he first came in. He said, you know, for 20 years I played against you lot and you lot were horrible. And that's what we've got to, that's the standards we've got to get to. You know, he talked about in the first few weeks of taking over, he said the teams he was playing in were almost beaten by the time they got to the dressing room at Welford Rd, because the whole thing of playing Leicester got to them in the week and psychologically. And that was the sort of standard where he wanted us to take that group to. And this season you're starting to see it, because under the work of Aled Walters as the fitness coach, the fitness they've got is incredible, where they can play at a high intensity for 80 minutes. It's a full 80-minute team and squad now. And you know, it's important because we're going to need that this weekend. But you look at the results they've got, you know, at home to Sarries, and they won with a penalty try for the last kick of the game. Away at Bristol, where we scored a winning try with 84 minutes on the clock. I mean, we're down and out, you know, for 4 minutes. We were battering on the door, going after phase and phase after phase. And we worked to play into the corner, and Guy Porter scores and wins us the game. You know, earlier in this competition away at Connacht, Hosea Salmaki scores with, you know, practically 20 seconds left on the clock again to win the game. And it's that never say die attitude. And it's their belief and the iron will that if they're within a score, even if the clock's up, they'll still believe they can find a way of doing it. And the more they keep pulling off these remarkable results, the more confidence and the more belief that they get that they can do it. And it's a core feature of what Steve's been banging into them over the 2 years of, you may lose, but you fight for 80 minutes. It doesn't matter what the result is almost, but you put pride in the shirt, you put passion in the shirt, and you play for 80 minutes. You don't let the opposition have an easy ride of things. And that was too common a feature of the group he inherited. You know, that was a common feature of Leicester when we finished 11th. The amount of times you'd get into the last 5-10 minutes of games winning and then lose it because they just couldn't fight until the end. So the transformation and that iron will is there, and it's for a young squad as well. It is remarkable that they've got it, and it's an important characteristic to have, because this weekend it is a test, and that 80-minute game is required, and they're going to be tested full on at high intensity for 80 minutes. And that's where, from our side, it's quite exciting to see if they can stand up to it. This is probably the toughest challenge that they've faced as a playing group.
What challenges specifically? I mean, when you look at the Leinster team and how they stack up with Leicester and their strengths and weaknesses, what from the Leicester point of view, what are the biggest challenges on the pitch, do you think, for this group?
I think the ruthlessness of Leinster. I think if you look at how Leinster go about the game, where any mistake an opposition team makes, they capitalise on it straight away and punish them for it. So it's not just an 80-minute performance in terms of high intensity, but it's the accuracy as well. You can't afford to give away chances or not convert them when you get them. But you look at the team that Leinster are likely to put out when the team gets released tomorrow. You know, it's effectively the vast majority. It's the island side, and it's the quality and the talent on an individual basis, the collective when you put those names together, and it's the experience that. It's the experience that Leinster have got. You know, for the last 10, 15 years, they are the gold standard in Europe. They've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Many of the team have done it for Leinster. They've gone off to Ireland. They've done it there at international level. Some of them have gone on to the Lions tours, and they've won test matches and been involved in those big Lions games. And so they're well aware of the intensity and what's required in these big games. They know how to win them. So man for man on a talent basis, you could make an argument that it stacks up, but that winning culture that Leinster have and that know-how to get over the line, you've got to respect it. And that's fundamentally, that's the biggest thing that Leicester have got to overcome on Saturday.
Ellis Genge versus Tyg Furlong rumble in the jungle too after the Six Nations game. And Ellis definitely got a one-up on Tyg at set piece there. Legally or not, you can debate that. The World Rugby came out and said what they said after that game. It's interesting that Mathieu Reynal is once again the referee, I'm pretty sure. So I wonder, you can make an argument for the kind of the human aspect of it would suggest that maybe he comes back more towards the middle, maybe in at set piece, but you can't predict that. But how important does Ellis become to the Tigers?
Unbelievably important. And it's not just the playing side with Ellis. And he has transformed his game across as the season has developed. And in recent months, both just for Leicester and for England, he's took his game on to new levels, really. And we all know about his ball carrying ability, but it's his defence work, his scrummaging, his work at the breakdown, all those different factors that are coming together from his playing side. And it's took his game to astronomical new levels, really. And he's up there as, one of the best loose heads in Europe now, if not the world. But in addition to that, it's his leadership. For some people, it was a bit of an outside choice for Genge to be given the captaincy, but he has took it and ran with it in spades. His leadership is so good and so important for that team, because that group would follow him. They'd follow him into battle everywhere, and you can see the respect he's got. And even though he'll only be captain for a year because he leaves at the end of the season, I do genuinely believe he'll go down as probably one of the better Tigers captains we have had, because of just how he operates and how he goes about his business and how the team follow him and how the team respond to his actions. He leads by actions rather than by words. And, we as fans would run through a brick wall for Ellis, let alone what the players would do. So, no, it's been a great and inspired choice by Steve, making him first team captain. And as I say, it'll be his leadership just as much as his playing ability that will be so important on the weekend for us if we are to get that victory.
Sorry, Conor, I don't want to hijack this. I just want to ask one more follow-up, and then Elliot's all yours. I completely forgot that Ellis is leaving for the end of the season. Thanks for reminding me. Is there any bad blood there, or is there an understanding that Bristol is his home and he's just going home?
It's the same with Ford. We're in a bit of...
Yeah, of course.
It's the same where, and to be fair, both guys have come out and said, if it was for rugby reasons, they wouldn't be doing it. But, I think we've all learned over the last couple of years with the pandemic how much family is important to us, and rugby players are human at the same time, and it's something that we all forget at times. But fundamentally, both players have come out and said it's not purely on rugby reasons alone. There's family ties involved. George is going back to the northwest where his family are. Ellis is going back to the southwest where his family are. And you have to respect both of those decisions. I don't think money came into it. I don't think who the club or where the clubs are at. It's purely a family decision. And when it comes to that, you have to respect the boys for it. And it's going to be hard for us to let them go, because of how brilliant both have been for us this season. But and how much they put into the shirt. But I don't think there's any bad blood at all. Certainly not for those reasons.
Is there a sense, Elliot, with these departures in mind? Is there a sense amongst supporters that now is the time? If we're going to reconquer Europe, it'll have to be this season. As you're losing 2 key players next year.
Yeah,
or is there optimism? I know you've a young side too. Like what's the feeling like? Do you see these guys as replaceable and that this season is something you can build on, or is there a strong sense that we really have to win something now, or because we'd be weakened next year?
It's an interesting point, and it's probably 50-50 to be honest, because that I'm on, but I see both strains of that argument. Because if you look at the average age of the squad overall, it's 25, and a lot of the guys that involved or not at the weekend are all in their sort of early 20s. You know, Ellis, for example, is the senior player, but he's 26, 27. Hanro Liegenberg's 25. But then you look at Joe Hayes is 22. Tommy Raffel is 22. Jack Von Portfleet's 21. Ollie Chesham's 21. George Martin's 20. You know, that's just 5 or 6 of them. You know, these boys really have got 10 years ahead of them. You know, they probably won't peak physically for another 3 or 4 years. At 24, 25, that's when you fully grow into your body physically. So that they look powerful and they're good now at 20, 21. You think with another 3 or 4 years of good coaching and good physicality work, that it's almost scary to think what they'll look like at that point. So there is a trail of thought to go, you know, it's as a group, it is very, very early in their development, and it's probably a game that comes a year too soon for them. I think a lot of fans would love to have seen this game in another 12 months' time with another 12 months' worth of coaching. But the point you've raised is an interesting one, and it's very, very true. The counter argument is that with Genge going, Ford going, potentially Nemani Nadola going at the end of the season, or you know, within the next, certainly before the end of 2022, back home to Southern Hemisphere, there is a feeling that actually this group, this is this group's shot at doing something. You know, Pollard's coming in next year. We're not sure who's coming in yet for Genge's replacement. So the squad will still be in a good place next season. And it's not, I don't think it's a hard and fast do or die because of the expectations of where the squad was at the start of the season. You know, all of us wanted us to be in the top 4 and see where we got on with Europe, get into the knockout stages and see where the draw takes you. But as the season goes on, yeah, there may be a feeling that actually it'd be nice for this group to put a trophy on it, just to give something. You know, winning trophies is a tangible way of measuring success. Yeah. You know, as soon as you win a medal or a trophy, that's a very tangible thing. You know it's been a successful season because you've gone in to a competition and you've gone all the way and won it. But the season would still be a success even if we don't win anything. You know, the fact that we've took the season so far and what we've done so far in the season, even if we don't win anything, it is a successful season overall. But I think there is a feeling of it would be nice to send those lads off with a winner's medal of something in their back pocket, whether it's a domestic trophy or otherwise. So it's a very long-winded answer in saying I can see both sides of the coin.
No, I completely know. And as a supporter,
you can have the Premiership, not Europe.
Yeah. Best of luck. We all want to see you beat Saracens, trust me. You mentioned something there earlier there, Ellis. You were talking about Leinster's ruthlessness and their winning culture. Now, Leinster have won a lot, plenty of trophies in recent times. But do you get a slight bit of optimism when you look back on Leinster's losses? Their losses away from home against big physical teams like Saracens and La Rochelle. Does that give you a bit of confidence when you see that template for beating Leinster? Is it a game plan you can?
Yeah, definitely. You have to, when you play against a team like Leinster, any sort of chink in the armour you sort of have to focus on, because there's not many weaknesses when you look at a team like Leinster. So if you find one, you've got to. That's the bit that you've got to grab hold of and really focus your efforts on. So, you know, you look at the blueprints that's gone on before from Sarries and La Rochelle and amongst others, and you go, okay, there seems to be a bit of a theme there, and actually that sort of theme plays into our hands quite well. So you go, okay, that's something for us to focus on. And ironically, I looked at Leinster in the second leg at home to Connacht in the previous round, and you look at how Leinster were getting success and almost what Connacht weren't doing successfully in that game, and you go, actually, those bits and pieces which Connacht should be doing, those are sort of things which we tend to do, don't you know, winning the collisions, being physical in defence, kicking smart, controlling the territory, controlling the possession. All of these things are bits and pieces of our game which are so important to us. Now, doing that on its own doesn't get you to win, but you've got to do all of those things and play really well for 80 minutes, and that gives you the best chance of victory. You still might not win, but it puts you in a great position to come away with a victory. And I suspect that's what Steve will be focusing on this week with the players. And he's already said it's about doing the fundamentals and doing the basics very, very, very well. And I think that's what, that's Tigers' game plan in a nutshell. It's what they've done over the last couple of years is break down all the different elements of what rugby is, and they focus on them, they work on them, and they do them very, very well. And that's where the game plan doesn't look very flashy and it doesn't look very spectacular, but it's why it's so almost relentlessly effective. And you get to the 80th minute and you go, oh, well, Leicester have won. It doesn't feel like they've done much more than just keep going and keep going and keep doing the fundamentals and consistently, and just almost battering the opposition into submission. So you look at how Leinster have come unstuck in previous years, and you suspect that's probably how that's the blueprint of how you've got to focus on.
Speaking of blueprints, where can Leicester come unstuck? And then maybe when you finish your answer with a prediction for us as well.
No, sure. I think the inexperience of Tigers, I think, is the main area for Leicester, because it's the not knowing your surroundings almost in these big games. It's still a young group, and there's a lot of players that have had international exposure, but very much at the start of their international careers. And so they're still finding their way at England level, let alone anything else. So I think the experience versus the inexperience factor is the big one. If you're Leinster, you'd focus on that, because on a talent basis, I think it's fairly equal to match up. I think there's some really interesting battles man for man across the field. You look at Leinster's big game experience, and that's, for me, the huge point of difference between the two sides across that, that depth of talent. When you look at probably 16, 17 of the 23 are Ireland internationals, you've got to respect that from a Tigers point of view, and we have to acknowledge that that's probably where we're so vulnerable. In terms of the game and the predictions, I'm a Leicester City fan, and I was lucky enough 6 years ago to watch that 2015-26 season home and away, and I went to watch so many of the games, and it was an incredible season where you talk yourself each week to go, they won't win this week, they won't win, and then they won. You go, okay, well, they've won again, and they're top of the table, and then you go, well, we've beaten Chelsea. You won't beat Chelsea at home. That's impossible. And they did beat Chelsea at home. That's mad. And then you go to Man City away, and you go, surely they won't beat Man City away. And suddenly they're 3-0 up after half an hour, and you go, well, that's even more mental. And eventually you just convince yourself, it became apparent at the end of the season, the stars were aligning, and you go, actually, something might be happening here. You've got to take advantage of it. I think Leicester, for me, and I never do this, I always back against Leicester in these big games. I always back the opposition to win. You always get a bit excited that's what it always covers yourself if Leicester then do go and win it. I have the same feelings about Tigers this year that I had 6 years ago, where all the logic, all the form, all the statistics, all the everything suggests this is a Leinster win. Leinster are deservedly favourites, and they are the standout team, and deservedly so. And everything points towards the Leinster win, and as it should do. I just this could be complete nonsense, and this might be just the heart talking far too much nonsense, but there's just something weird and wonderful how this season has gone for Tigers, where I could see them pulling off a victory, and I think Tigers by 3. But it'll be, irrespective of what the result is, I think it'll be an unbelievable game. I think it's the game of the weekend. It's two really good teams going hammer and tong at each other, and I just can't, as I say, I can't wait to get stuck into watching it. I think it's going to be an incredible occasion. The atmosphere will be terrific, and yeah, Tigers by 3. But I don't think that's it could be complete nonsense.
One result I remember from that 2016 campaign was, so we're going way off topic here, but was Big Danny Welbeck 2-1 at the Emirates for Arsenal against Leicester. Now, I'm an Arsenal fan, so hopefully the one game that Leicester lost that year and then the one game that my team wins this year, if there's a very tenuous connection to be drawn there.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Actually, I'm an Arsenal fan as well, and we did the double on Leicester. The only team that did.
How am I only finding out this information now?
Sure, all we talk about is rugby. Oh, it's a rugby show. I forgot.
But
Probably why.
We won't start an Arsenal show now.
Yeah.
Elliot, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate that.
Elliot, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we can get you back on the show again, because it's been a great chat, and the time just flew. We're getting close to the end of the show, so we'll have to say our goodbyes. But just before you go, Elliot, do you want to give us a quick word on what you do in your blog?
Oh, brilliant! Well, thank you very much. So, what I do as a fan is that I'm a Leicester Tigers and sometimes Leicester City blogger. So I have a blog that's called A View from LE2, which is the postcode for all the stadiums operating. At the time I was living in the LE2 postcode, so it seemed quite a fitting name to call myself. So, and if anyone's on Twitter and want to read the ramblings and the blogging that I do on Leicester Tigers, it's @from LE2.
From LET. I'll definitely be checking that out.
Hang on, I'm just putting that into my Twitter now, because I'd love to read what you have on this weekend.
And funny enough, I wrote something about the game this weekend and did some matchups and bits and pieces on there, because it was too good an opportunity, too good a game just to ignore it and not talk about it. But gents, thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think for everyone, let's just enjoy the game for what it is on Saturday afternoon, because it's going to be a fantastic advert for club rugby.
Proper rugby match.
Have a good one.
Enjoy and best of luck to you and your team, Elliot.
Top stuff. Cheers. Take care.
That was good, wasn't it?
God, brilliant. Yeah.
The Genge forward leaving thing, I don't know why I forgot about that, and that's brilliant. That's an extra storyline. It's fascinating.
It's unfortunate. I wonder. I know he's going back to family, and he has his priorities, right? I guess, but it's a massive loss for Leicester, coming at a time when they're on the cusp of a wave, and they need this experience. So it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. Bristol possibly going in the opposite direction. You know, they haven't had a great season at all. So listen.
We'll see.
Genge against Furlong on Saturday. That's box office.
I know you can't wait. I know you love a front row battle.
Oh yeah, that's where it all happens. You know, to make the winning and losing of a match is. It
looks like we should have that full trio back. Kelleher's back in training, I think. So
yeah.
Hope, fingers crossed, he's grand. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. We should say hello to Jerry Sweeney, and I can't remember if it's communion or confirmation he's at tonight, but that's why I'm with his and not Jerry. So hopefully he's enjoying himself. We should mention he was in Terenure on the weekend for a blitz, for an inclusive rugby blitz, and Bernard Jackman was at that, and Bernard Jackman was taking lots of photos with the kids, and he was giving them shout outs on his podcast. So that's fantastic. Jerry will probably focus on that next month.
And of course, we've a strong focus on this show and all forms of inclusive rugby, from tag and mixed ability with the World Cup coming up in June, basketball, and there's been some wheelchair rugby. There's been some great things happening. Just mentioned briefly for inclusive rugby and mixed ability of late, with Ravenhill hosting an exhibition game at halftime in the Toulouse match. Leinster having an inclusive rugby blitz at halftime against Connacht, and Munster hosting all the mixed ability sides for halftime in their recent match in Cork. So it's great to see every area of the game getting the publicity and encouragement they deserve, because rugby isn't just about the elite.
Exactly.
Rugby is for everyone.
Exactly. So good to see people like Jackman getting involved as well.
Yeah.
And showing his face and giving it his profile as well. And thanks to Gerald Willamson, thanks to Elliot. That was fascinating. That's one of the best opposition combos I've had, and I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go read his stuff now. Everyone go follow him on Twitter at from
I
Elliot.
could chat all night to Elliot.
That was brilliant.
Time went too quick, but say la vie.
We've teased Jerry Sweeney and that blitz and everything else that's going on in the world, inclusive rugby. We've teased the women's chat we're going to have. We're going to have loads of specials coming up once the season ends. So just keep tuned here. Stay tuned here. Conor, thanks so much for your company tonight.
Nathan, great to be back in action with you.
Yeah, and cheers to Big Joe Shep as always in the TMO truck. We love him and couldn't function without him, as he knows.
Thanks,
and I know
Joe.
we drive him mad.
We put you under pressure this week. We're sorry.
I know he loves us too. And I think that's all she wrote, folks.
That's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, there's one thing regarding last month's competition about Tanya Rosser for free coffee beans. There was a bit of a mix-up. We couldn't go into all the groups to check who liked the page and etc. So we're going to go through that again, and we will sort out those winners in due course. But apart from that,
and we would also like to thank our supporters as always. That's Rugby Academy Ireland, Shep's Blend, and PGM Financial Services. So thanks for your ongoing support, guys. And of course, you can follow, support if you like the show or the other shows going out from the ThreeBOD group. Check out the page, ThreeBOD group, like, comment, follow, all the usual, and keep up to date with all our shows. We have this monthly one and a number of other shows going out from the ThreeBOD group. All worth to watch.
We will see you next month when Leinster are Champions Cup winners.
Absolutely. Good night, guys.